This isn't you. This is Kronos. He got to you.
No, he opened my eyes to the truth.
In Star Wars, like, Luke doesn't try to kill Vader. He doesn't even try to kill the Emperor. Like, you want me to be angry at you. You want me to, like, fight back at you. But I'm only going to do it if I feel like I have to protect somebody. Like, in Return of the Jedi, the only time Luke gets angry and, like, fights back is when the Emperor, or not the Emperor, when Vader brings up Leia.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
So upset that he, like, cuts off Vader's hand and stops because it reminds him of how he has a robotic hand too, and he stops himself. But, like, he doesn't get angry at them over himself. He gets angry at them protecting his sister. That's the thing that makes him really upset. And it's not like a thing of, like, I want to beat you. It's like, I need to stop you from hurting my sister. And so a lot of things, like heroes in everything that you can ever imagine that they do, is there's always a time when they could just take the person out. And sometimes people are like, oh, you should have done that, because then they went on to, like, hurt a bunch of other people. But I always love those, that's why I always like the hero characters the most, because it's a really complicated thing to see somebody that's a horrible person that's hurt a lot of people, but still want to give them another chance to stop. Even if you think that it's unlikely that they will, you give them, like, every possible opportunity to do that anyway. The whole fun thing about Return of the Jedi is that the Emperor's like, all your friends are gonna die, all of their plans aren't gonna work, and then their plans all start working. He has hope, and he believes in the faith that he has with his friends that things will work out in the end, because he trusts those people with everything. I've said this a million times about Percy Jackson, but the reason why people are freaking out about him being gone in Heroes of Olympus and stuff is because he had all of the power. He had the opportunity to do whatever he wanted, and he chose to help all of them instead. And so, like, you're going to build so much trust with people where they're going to spend 6 months of their lives looking for you every single day. And like, people like the villains or whatever, they almost, like, don't understand why people love the heroes like that so much. Cause you brought up Avatar, like, Azula is a really good chance. Like, Zuko would have been horrible if you just took out Azula when she was, like, literally having a mental breakdown and, like, crying. And, like, the very last scene of the entire thing, like, I saw a quote the other day from the voice actress for Azula saying that she never has watched that scene back because she had to, like, think of things from her actual life to, like, tap into those emotions, and it made her so upset having to do that she has never watched the scene again because it just reminds her of how she felt in that moment. And, like, no, it was not right for Zuko to have, like, killed Azula in that moment. It wouldn't have been right for Aang to take out Sozin when he was Ozai, when he was literally, like, powerless and had nothing.
Yeah, Azula is an interesting example of that. So I know you haven't read the comics. Azula still causes trouble in the comics. I'll just say that without spoiling it if you ever do get a chance to read them. Ozai is completely powerless. There is, like, one comic where Zuko's feeling conflict in his new leadership role, and he goes to literally everyone for advice, including Ozai at one point, but he doesn't necessarily follow his advice. So Ozai was left completely powerless. Azula was not. And, like, that's the difference, where she still has the potential to hurt people as much as she has the potential to reform. Of course, as a former golden child myself, I would love her to have a redemption arc, but at least of what I've read of the comics so far, that has not happened. And the other example I wanted to talk about is Batman. Because he is, like, my dad and my brother's special interest. His power is yes, money, but also intellect, it seems like, because he does like acquire a bunch of skills and stuff that make him good at what he does. But he is one of those superheroes that makes it a point to not take out the bad guys, to let them go into Arkham Asylum, and they almost always get back out. And the Joker is one that really makes you question whether or not this stance that he has is worth it, because the Joker just takes people out at random. The Joker doesn't even like care. You know, the Joker just wants to cause chaos. In fact, once he finds out that this is one of Batman's lines in the sand, he's like trying to push him past it like constantly. And so that's one instance where it is like, okay, but is being merciful, is not taking him out and not stooping to his level really helping here? Or is it, you know, causing more harm? Because you could make that argument with some of these cases we've talked about, like that they will go on to cause more harm.
About you in a museum.
They've set the perimeter.
I know you're nervous, and you have plenty of reason to be. But you're lying.
Bucky was brainwashed to be a serial killer, basically. Like, he had absolutely no choice in it, but that's what he had, what they forced him to do. And he tries to kill Steve many times, and Steve still won't hurt him. Like, there's the whole storyline between the two of them in the Civil War movie is literally everyone is telling Steve to turn Bucky in or to fight against him. If you have to kill him, you might have to kill him. And he's like, no. Like, over and over again. He's like, no. The first, like, interaction they have in that movie is all of these police people trying to take out Bucky for, like, 10 minutes. Like, Black Panther shows up and tries to kill him. Like, all of these people are trying to kill him. His best friends are even telling him, you're probably going to have to kill him at some point if he's not good. And he's like, no, I'm never going to kill Bucky. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you will have to kill me before I do that. Like, you will actually have to kill me if you want to do that. I'm never going to turn him in, and I'm never going to do that. And he ends up being in the right. Like, everything that people think Bucky did in that movie, he was being set up for. He never actually did it. And so if they would have killed him, they would have killed a completely innocent person that was tortured by a Nazi organization for 70 years. Mm-hmm. And literally everyone else in that movie is telling him to do it, and he won't do it.
What makes you think that she was a monster?
Mom.
Not everyone who looks like a hero is a hero. And not everyone who looks like a monster is a monster.
Thinking of what happens with Polyphemus and him in Sea of Monsters, that he doesn't want to hurt him. He feels really bad about hurting him because he knows that he's alone on this island, and
that's his brother.
Yeah, and he was horribly hurt by Odysseus long ago, and he even says in that book, like, it wasn't right how Odysseus did that to him. Mm-hmm. And so he understands why Polyphemus hates humans and doesn't trust them. He has every reason not to trust them, considering that experience happened to him. And so even though he knows he has to do something to him to stop him so that he doesn't hurt him and his friends, he doesn't want to. And he understands why he's so upset at him, and he empathizes with him for why he hates him. He doesn't just be like, oh, you're just a monster, I don't care about what's going to happen to you, or just assume the worst, I guess, about him in the way that Odysseus kind of does. He doesn't even, he's just right away, he's just like, we're just going to kill all of his sheep, and that's that on that, and doesn't think about another option. And I think that's why Rick Riordan wrote him like that, or wrote Polyphemus and their interactions with him that way, because he wanted to give him at least them many chances of trying different things. And even the way that it ends with him in Percy Jackson, at least, Percy is having dreams about, thinking about how he wants Polyphemus to believe that he killed them. Mm-hmm. He's okay with him believing that he took them out, even though he didn't, because he wants him to feel like he got a win out of something.
Yeah.
He has empathy for him enough where he is okay with him believing that, believing that he actually want to fight when he didn't. And I'm just remembering all these different characters that have such big egos that would never be okay with somebody believing that they won when they actually lost, and would feel like they need to like correct them about that. But it's a very like empathetic way of looking at him, and even like all of the like villains in Percy Jackson, he like somewhat can empathize with why they are doing those things, like, or why like certain, like, he can figure out the motivations of where like their motivations started off from. Even if he's obviously not okay at all with what they're doing, he can understand where it started from at a certain point, and like recognizes that when he's like fighting them.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff makes him more interesting, because he never does. It's like the irony of characters like that is that they never do what the villains expect them to, and so they usually succeed because they just think about things differently.
Yeah. With Percy, I have to wonder if it comes from the fact that he's always been kind of put into you're the bad kid role in the mortal world. And so he's like, okay, everybody automatically thinks I'm bad. What if that's not true for all these monsters?